Welcome to Behind the Play, a video and podcast product of The Hoop Show that explores the lives of Geelong players past and present, as well as the off-field figures that are keeping us Geelong strong. My name is Paul James, and today I have the great pleasure to chat to someone who has both been an on-field champion for the Cats and an off-field one. Steve Hocking, how are you?
Well, Paul. Yeah, great to chat.
It's awesome to get to chat. We've faced a few technical difficulties over the course of the last couple of days trying to get everything working, but finally it's all come together, and here we are, and I'm really looking forward to having a chat to you today.
Yeah, likewise. Looking forward to it as well.
So we were discussing it off camera a little bit, off mic just before. How's this week been? It's I guess it's a different week to this time last year, but as a non-participating team this year, but obviously there's still lots of different functions and the like that are on. How's the week been so far?
It's certainly a lot quieter. You haven't got all the additional requirements as far as all your fans and so forth to tend to, but we've had a busy start to the week with a lot of industry meetings and catch-ups, and then obviously into the Brownlow on Monday night. And we've had a really short week from when our AFLW team had a win against Port Adelaide last Saturday over in Adelaide. So they've had to turn that around by tonight, Thursday night. And we're looking forward to that. We've got a match against Melbourne, and it's the first time we'll play them in AFLW history. So we're pretty excited about that being held at HBA Stadium.
It's no small task taking on the reigning premiers, but hopefully by the time this episode goes to air, we can be celebrating a win. All things going well.
Yeah, it'd be good. It's clearly sort of where we're looking to break into, is that top four. We had a close game against North Melbourne a couple of weeks back here at HBA. So. Hopefully, I know that the group has certainly learned from that experience, and they'll build on that. And just excited for them to be on the big stage here.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic, and hopefully again celebrating a win. So we've had a few technical things as we kind of mentioned. So we've got a slightly abbreviated show today. So I'll still go through all the intro things that we might normally do. For you, Steve, when did footy first come into your life? Was it one of those things from moment one that it was always on the radar, or did it take a little while before it really captured your heart?
No, it was pretty early on. Having been born and raised in a small country town of Cobram up in the Murray there, you had sort of your winter sport, which was football, and your summer sport, which was cricket. And we used to sort of then integrate basketball and soccer, and there's a group of Hocking boys. Obviously, my younger brother, and there's an older brother, Craig, as well. So we found ourselves often being called upon to be part of a lot of sports. But my early recollection was there's actually a really early photo of my older brother and myself and I'm actually dressed in a full Cobram Tigers football kit, and I'm no more than 2 years old in that photo. So
yeah, right.
Yeah, so there's obviously a bit of an appetite then, and then you sort of start to grow, and you realise that an uncle was invited to train at Collingwood on my father's side, and there was an uncle on a brother on my mother's side who was at the Western Bulldogs and was training there as well, and was on their list actually, and had a serious workplace accident back in the 60s, and that ended his career. And so, clearly in the family, there was that sporting connection, and it was largely sort of related to football. So it just grew and emerged from there.
And so I guess who were you supporting in those early days? Was it the Dogs through that family connection, or?
No, it wasn't.
Was
we were very strong Carlton family growing up, and I mean at one point in time, my younger brother Gary was actually almost put on Carlton's list.
Yeah, right.
And then Geelong realised that was they got wind of the fact that was about to happen, and then
swooped in.
Swooped in and made sure that he was listed with the club, but. No, look, it was Carlton early days, but we were in the Geelong region. So in those days, it was a zone, and we were in the Geelong zone. And, I saw lots of guys like Jeff Cassidy and Darren Flanagan and Bernard Toohey, amongst many others from that Murray League region that had found their way through to Geelong. So that was pathway. So it was a pretty easy transition. It was also a really good transition from a small country town to a slightly larger country town being Geelong. And, I mean, I've been just so blessed to have landed here and be, provided the opportunities that I've had.
It's certainly always interesting to see kind of how family ties, especially if there is an actual connection to an AFL club, how that influences others within the family. So, I mean, for myself personally, my granddad played for the Cats, and so that was I was born, and I think I can only imagine that the moment I arrived, boom, the jumper was thrown straight over the top, and that's it. There was no going back from that point. That was totally fine by me, as it turns out. But yeah, it's certainly really interesting to see where those ties kind of go. But for you, how did the love of, really, as you kind of touched on, a lot of different sports there, become potentially interest in pursuing AFL itself in terms of actually playing at a top level?
Yeah, look, I remember writing to, I think I was probably about 10 or 11 years of age, and I wrote to both Bruce Dool, who was a massive favourite of mine, and also Alex Jesaulenko. And so I love the discipline of Bruce Dool, but I love the excitement of Alex Jesaulenko. And hopefully that sort of gives the listeners a bit of an understanding of why I love both aspects of the game, the discipline around the game, but I also love the highlights reel as well.
Yeah.
And, fortunately, like they actually both replied to my letters, which is pretty special. So that connection just grew, and then through the country areas, because you were regional, there was opportunities to be in representative teams, and have always sort of had an appetite to come up and out of that country town and have a look at the opportunities that may be available to you. So I was very fortunate to go to Darwin when I was about 14 years of age. With a Victorian schoolboys team and represent Victoria. So we had a carnival in Darwin. I think it was about 1978. In that team was Paul Salmon and Gary Pert and a host of others that have actually, Pat Foy, that have all gone on to play AFL football. So that was a pretty amazing experience. And then a couple of years after that, I was selected into a boys, a junior Irish team to go to Ireland and play Gaelic football. It was the first junior team to go. And from memory, I reckon that was about 1981. And it was just an incredible experience. So all of those deepened my love and opportunities. I recognised that, if I was going to be successful at something and really drive towards that, football was sort of becoming that thing, and it was an incredible opportunity to pack up and leave Cobram. I landed here in Geelong as a 17-year-old, and I'm still here now.
And obviously, you've kind of led right up to the point where the career itself begins. And so, picked up by the Cats, and a career that spanned 11 years from 84 to 94 there. And you got to see the highs and lows of AFL football, in the sense of playing grand finals but not necessarily winning them, and obviously a range of other experiences along the way. Certainly, and all credit to Ben, who helps put together an amazing run sheet and kind of a few notes and beats to hit when it comes to the show as well. He cites little things like perhaps having a crack at Lee Matthews in '85 there after Neville Brunson's broke a jaw, taking a swing at him there. There's all sorts of things on different parts of the footballing spectrum there. But I guess as you first entered the game and played AFL at level, what was it like for you?
Oh, look, it was quite incredible. I mean, I was still the young boy from Cobram, and so to do that, pack up literally as a 17-year-old and land in a completely new town and find your way. You end up immersing yourself in a family, a football club. And we're very fortunate. It's even more like that now than even back then, because we had to work, and so the part-time nature of it, you're able to come into your family and then you would come out of it. And what I was mindful of was completing an apprenticeship, and that was a bricklaying apprenticeship with a local company. I started that apprenticeship in Cobram. I had a transfer down here to Geelong, a company called WA Searle & Son, and they had quite a big gang, and so that became a family as well. And I sat with inside that. So I was very, very fortunate to have I almost got cocooned and wrapped up into a similar environment to what I had in Cobram, and I was able to replicate that down here. And I'm forever grateful for those opportunities. Yeah, so it was sort of those early years that they were tough because you were leaving your family, and quite a large family. There's four of us in terms of children, and really sort of tightly connected in the community, and heavily involved in sport in the community. And then you come down here, but found my way through. I actually initially found it quite tough. I left Geelong, and I went to a local club in the GFL called Newtown and Chilwell Football Club, and I found it difficult early to combine my apprenticeship and all the manual labour I was doing, and actually being a VFL footballer at the time, as it was known then. And so I exited, and then the club wouldn't clear me out to Newtown. And what a lot of people don't realise is I actually ended up playing a registered game at Newtown, but I was played under I was
an alias.
Well, no, I was actually an unregistered player, so we won the game and we lost the points, Newtown, but they were so committed to me and so supportive of me, realising that's what I wanted to do. But in the end, we couldn't get that done, so I came back to the club, and in the 1 year played under-19s, reserves and seniors all in the same year, because I figured, well, I'm here now, I may as well just make a go of it. And I sort of, swallowed up my pride there, and tucked my tail between my legs and just got on with things and balanced my work and football, and we sort of worked through it from there.
No, that's awesome, and as you say, probably something that very few people know is that little story along the way. So thanks so much for sharing that one. And then obviously as we enter the playing days in the Geelong AFL team, I think about things like 1986, where you got your first goal, end up kicking 1 goal 2 that day against the Saints. So
is that right?
Yeah, we've remember that. Wow, so a couple years in, but the first goal, and then obviously feeling a bit hungry that day, perhaps, and wanted to add a few more to the tally while we were at it. But
I'm not sure what I was doing the end of the ball.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, a lot of people will know you, of course, as a defender. So to hear you strolling down the other end and hitting the scoreboard, it's a change of pace. But I guess do you have any memories of that first goal, given that it wasn't necessarily your thing?
No, I actually don't. But what I will say is what you have jogged my memory on is that when I first started under Hayfie, I was actually played more as a half forward. Which again, a lot of people won't realise that. No, I'd forgotten about it myself because I was so indoctrinated into the back half. Yeah, and so it's interesting that you raised that. I was completely unaware of that. I do get reminded by my two children that Dad, you kicked 10 goals in your entire career, so don't be teaching us how to kick goals because you really have no idea how to.
Well, I mean, we can hone more in on the fact that it just wasn't your responsibility and your job. Doesn't mean you can't do it, right?
Yeah. Yes. Exactly.
And so, as we cast our eyes forward, we obviously touched on some of the lows being, grand finals and those sort of things. Well, 89 was a weird one in that your first final was the qualifying final there against Essendon, which was a bit of an interesting, I guess, first exposure considering then how the rest of the finals played out from that point. But then, of course, there's the 89 grand final against the Hawks. So let's dive into that one a little bit. Memories from that day. How's it stack up today?
Yeah, Paul, can I just take you back? So Malcolm Blythe was obviously the coach in that year. Malcolm thought that he'd create this amazing experience in our first final against Essendon at the MCG, and we sort of relive our childhood and what it was like. So in those days, you travelled up on a bus to the MCG.
Yeah.
Now players just do it all in their own cars. It's quite different to what it was like then, and so Malcolm engineered this idea and built on it, whereby we would pull off the Westgate Freeway and go to those hockey fields, which a lot of your listeners may be familiar with. The hockey fields on the left-hand side as you're coming up from Geelong, heading to the MCG. And what we would do there is we'd get off the bus and we'd just act like we were in the schoolyard and really take the pressure off ourselves, being our first final, and take a few speckies and, kick a few torps and sort of do all that type of stuff. And Malcolm was part of it, right? So all the coaching group were part of it. Well, it was about, I reckon that particular day it was about 70 knot winds. And so we got to these hockey fields, and it took us 20 minutes to get off the West Gate to get to those fields. No one had factored that in. And then another 30 minutes to sort of get back on. And get to the MCG. As it turned out, it was a complete disaster. And then obviously we then had to then
go the long way.
Go the long way, and then replay Essendon at Waverley, I think it was, from memory. And then we did a number on them. We sort of reversed the whole trend by the time we got to there. The 89 grand final, I remember John Farnham being in the change rooms, and he was sort of walking around pacing the floor in amongst all of us. He was using our change rooms as the leader because he was the lead act, and he was warming up inside. And I remember a teammate of mine, Michael Schultz, coming over to Tim Darcy and myself and actually asking the question, who the F is this person doing this? And we're sort of looking at him like, it's John Farnham, one of the biggest legends going around. He had no idea at all. And so I do remember that. And then I remember the start to the game. Obviously, Malcolm doesn't take ownership of this, but he did set it up during the week that Mark Yates was to run through Brereton. But as it turned out, Michael Schultz was on the wrong side of Dermot for that to happen. He actually started on the left-hand side and blocked sort of Mark's run towards him. And as Mark was approaching, he had to yell out to Mick to get out of the way. And so Michael sort of, very last minute gets out of the way, and it takes some of the sting out of it all. But look, it was an incredible game. People talk about it would have been wonderful had it been a draw. I seriously do not believe we could have played a week later. There were so many injuries. The carnage in that game was quite extraordinary. I mean, I ended up spending a couple of weeks in hospital. I had a fully ruptured testicle, from that game, which not many people. Again, I'm sharing a little bit of intel here. Not many people know about. So you're getting some exclusives here.
Appreciate it.
And it was, like people were just so damaged. I definitely couldn't have played. And there was, I reckon, half a dozen teammates that were in the same boat.
And a similar story on the other side of the fence too. I'm sure it was an extremely brutal day. Lots of injury stories come of it, and you've obviously added to it a little bit yourself there. So appreciate it. As you said, that little bit of exclusive information there. It just adds to the mythology that is that day.
Yeah.
And so, obviously, quite a bit more finals experience over the subsequent years as well, and unfortunately, no premiership medallions to speak of from that period. But how do you reflect on, I guess, with 89 being a part of it as well, that whole era that is so often discussed when it comes to the Cats in terms of being close but not quite so often? How do you reflect upon that period personally yourself?
Paul, look, it's actually with a lot of fondness for me. It may be different for some of my teammates, but for me, genuine fondness and also just incredible learning. We were incredible in terms of the level of talent we had in the team, but we weren't necessarily a team. Like that selflessness that's required to have the ultimate success. We weren't quite there. Yeah, and it even sounds unfair saying that because we were a goal away from...
Nearly did it anyway.
Probably the greatest team ever in Hawthorn. When I say greatest team ever, the greatest team in that decade being Hawthorn. I mean, what was it? I think it was 5-day grand finals and 5 nights.
Yes, 5 day, 5 night, yeah.
Yeah, and so off the back of that, we were young, we were cheeky, we were, on our sort of early journey as far as making that 89 grand final. And we always, Tim Darcy and I used to talk about this all the time, if we can just get the one and get out the other side of it, we'll win the next one. The next one will be so much easier. And we just couldn't do it. Yeah, we just couldn't do it. But the thing that I'd love to share with you, with your listeners is I learned so much from that period. I'm a bit of a sponge as far as that goes. So there was a lot of learnings for me as a 25, 26, sort of through to a 28-year-old through that period that still sit with me today. And I have brought in to the roles that I've had as an administrator at the club And so, I often tell my close teammates from that time, they talk about how disappointed they were, and I remind them that those lessons have been applied on my watch from that time.
Yep.
Within the roles, and I've been really, really fortunate to be able to do that. So I sort of look back on it, Paul, and it's not been wasted.
Well, no, I mean, there's that saying, of course, that is always about, yes, you learn from your successes, but the amount that you can learn and apply from your failures as well is often even greater. Yeah. So it's fantastic to hear how you were personally able to respond to that and learn from it, reflect upon it, and draw upon those learnings in what you've done since for both the Cats and, of course, in the with the AFL as well. And so as we move towards as you touch on the administrative era, you've done plenty of work with the Cats, and as you are these days, but as well, there was the period, an awkward one through COVID and those sorts of things as well, but working with the AFL. So I guess because we are running low on time, this administrative era of yours, starting with the Cats, back over to the AFL, back to the Cats again, how do you reflect on, and I guess as you kind of touched on there, drawing upon some of those on-field experiences and learnings as well, how have you been able to apply that throughout your tenure?
Yeah, look, it's one of the best jobs I've had, that role at the AFL. I was there for 4 years. The back end of that was 2 years of COVID, which was really, really tough. And in the end, they felt like dog years, those 2 years. And so, I certainly didn't go in with a plan to be there for, 15 years, but I went in with a plan to be there certainly longer than 4 years. But as I say, the 2 years of COVID really impacted things. I was given a very clear mandate at the time from Girl, which was at the back end of 2017. I started in October 2017, and it was really clear week one that Gil and I were going to be able to work together really in a collaborative way, and he was going to be very, very supportive, because I think he felt a sense of experience within my decision making, because I've been in the game and I've been at the coalface of the game. I've basically been I've been on the factory floor, and I've been right up through all the different parts of the organisation. At Geelong, I was fortunate to have 14 months as Chief of Commercial here before I headed off to the AFL. I headed up footy. I worked with the best person I've ever worked with, Neil Barr. Here, we were together 8 years. We were yin and yang inside the football program, good cop, bad cop, however you want to reference that. So my learnings have been exponential. Brian Cook, Frank Costa, Colin Carter, Craig Drummond. I've been so fortunate to experience everyone from Tom Hafey, John Devine, Malcolm Blight, Mark Thompson. So I've been right at the coalface of so many different things and decision making. And to take that to the AFL and put it across the broader ecosystem, what an opportunity. It was just amazing for me to be able to do that. And so I genuinely went in a Switzerland position. So I didn't go in as a Geelong person. I went in to address and look after footy. And because when I started the AFL, it looked a lot more like rugby. In 2017, it was a case of...
Yeah, it was a bit more of the rolling scrum.
Yeah, how do we return the game, and you can't, because it's taken 20 years to get there. How do we return it so it's fun again and it's much more instinctive? That was the big thing. And I reckon probably the biggest thing I'd share with you, Paul, is that what I recognised early was the coaches their role is to win. And so part of winning, that winning mentality, is to take as much risk out of the system as possible.
Yep.
And the governing body's role is to introduce the risk and maintain the risk in the game, because what the fan like yourself, and I'm a fan, believe
at the end of the day, yeah,
I love footy. I absolutely love footy. It's I'm 58 years of age. I've had 50 years doing what I'm doing, and so very fortunate, and it's not lost on me that I'm a fan, and so people want to go to the game and they want to indulge in the game in a way whereby the athletes that are on the field are actually doing things that they can't replicate themselves. And, they might be weekend footballers, community footballers, second-tier footballers, and they're all trying to reach to that level, but they can't do that. And so we plug risk back in so that they were able to have time and space in the game to entertain us. And that's why people, in
That's why
my
people
view,
go.
that's why they go to the footy. That's why the players play the game. They don't want they don't want a backpack. They don't want the baggage that comes with it. They just want to play. And so, my 4 years there, that's what I dived into.
No, we do hear more and more of it from the players across the entire competition in terms of, I guess, the weight sometimes they carry because of so much of the off-field stuff, but to be able to bring the enjoyment, the fun and the purity back to, and as you kind of said, the instinctiveness as well, back to the actual core reason that they're actually out there in the first place, will undoubtedly create a better product. And it's certainly shown as someone who, as you kind of touched on, purely gets to consume and enjoy it. The enjoyment is way up, but it helps that we've won a premiership along the way as well. But
it does.
And I guess through various different roles over the journey, being able to be part of the success and the premiership success of the Geelong Football Club, what has that been like, considering, as we touched on, the not being able to reach that as a player, but being able to do that these days? What has that been like to be able to tick, I'm being a bit reductive, but to tick that box, I guess?
You're going to get me emotional if we go too far into this one. Look, the reality is it's what's the best way to describe it? And I said this to Craig Kelly earlier in the week, actually, and was sort of speaking to him over the weekend, and just said, he's been a premiership player. Clearly, I haven't been, but I've been part of 4 premierships here now as an administrator. Out of the 5 times that we've, I think it's 6 times we've been there, but I've been involved in 5 of those. It's just so fortunate. Like it's everything you would expect it to be for any individual out there that could imagine themselves in that situation. You continue to trip at the final hurdle, and now to be able to do that, whereby you've got some influence over the environment and how it operates and conducts itself, and what it means for players to come in here and to realise that. I've never forgotten what it was like for me to show up as a newbie, as a 17-year-old inside the football club, to now being the CEO of the Geelong Football Club. I've never ever forgotten what that experience was like, and so I carry that with me, because it's a really important part of who I am and the authenticity required to do the roles that I've done, including finding my way. How lucky am I? I've shown up here as a 17-year-old, and I'm now the CEO of the club.
Few can say the same thing.
Wouldn't have dreamt that in my wildest dreams.
And to have been part of so much success over the journey as well. So it's huge. We are starting to run low on time. So I guess in your role currently, but being able to probably cast an eye over the broader game as well, what are some of those priorities going forward? We've touched on the AFLW and the Cats team and where they're headed at the moment. Obviously, in terms of the Cats, we're pushing for top 4 and hopefully premiership success there. But I guess bigger picture, encapsulating that as well, where do we need things to go still at this particular point?
Are you talking Cats specifically, or are you talking...
Probably a bit of both.
Yeah, a bit of both. Yeah, so from a Geelong perspective, we'd love to hit 100,000 members. Our one of our main aims is by 2025 hitting that target. We'd love to hit it in conjunction with the Ford Motor Company, who will land on 100 years sponsorship of our Cats in 2025. Like that's world best and world longest. So to hit those 200s in the 1 year would just be amazing, and that's sort of something that keeps me awake at night, and I keep focused on, because I think it'll be an amazing thing to do. We need to make sure that we remain relevant. We continue to innovate with our list, and really continue to grow this precinct. Like we're about to. We'll take on the keys to stage 5 in the back half of the year, in late in December, and we're really excited about that and what that will do. To see the completion of the stadium is just going to be incredible. 40,000 seat stadium, so really excited for our members to experience that. We've got 2,500 general admission area, which is all standing room. So that Ablett Terrace, it's been, reintroduced with 2.5 opportunities. So, excited about that. As far as the broader game goes, I think what we'll see it grow even greater legs across and participation across nationally. With Tasmania coming in, super excited about that and what that introduction will mean for the comp. And then we've got this whole phase whereby there's going to be something like about 50 by 2027 with the new CBA rights for players. There's going to be close to 50 $1 million players. So sort of an average of about 3 per club, and then you've got the lowest paid player will be around about $519,000, $520,000, which is just quite extraordinary.
It's a huge jump.
Yeah. So what does that mean? What does that mean in terms of the players you're now dealing with? Because that's sort of starting to get to a like almost an international level of athletic payments. So so it'll be interesting to see how that changes. There's a lot to look forward to. I think people sort of look back on the original broadcast rights and felt like next time around it wouldn't be anywhere near what it was at the time, which I think was about 2.25 billion, and now it's doubled almost in size.
It's a far cry, yeah.
Yeah, for over $4 billion. So the growth in the game just continues. I'm really excited about where it's going, what it'll mean, and what the game will look like on field. I think that with AFLW, you've got a lot of younger women now that are actually playing, girls that are playing at that junior level. And so I think we're just going to see that really become quite expanded, and the skills and the enjoyment of that game will only grow. And who knows with men's where that goes? It's sort of exciting, to consider where that might end up by 2030.
Yeah, it's certainly a fascinating one, from both on the women's and the men's side. The women's game, just the overall standard that we've seen, not just within the Cats, but across the entire competition, is significantly up this year. And I think it's exactly as you say, where those lower levels, I think now, I'd hate to speak for anyone, but it feels like there's a growing feeling, okay, like the competition is there, the competition is supporting us, we can actually go places here, and it's driving engagement across the board from fan attendance, but also in terms of kids going out and playing the game, and it's having a huge say there. And then obviously on the men's side, there's the challenge of getting back into the top 8, and as you said, kind of relevance with the list and those sort of things. How do you see things shaping up in that space going into 2024?
Yeah, look, it's we've got some work ahead of us, but we always do this time of year, whether we've finished in the grand final or finals or out of it like we have. I think that our fans can certainly have a look to what we did this time last year around the trade period and also the draft. We went quite young with the talent that we brought in. In the end, we didn't see anything at all of Jai Clark. So we'll get a good look at him next year in 2024. We're excited about that. We've also got pick 7, so we've never been able to get inside the top 10 back-to-back years in my memory.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
So we're really excited about that. We think that guys like Ollie Henry and Tanner Bruin and Jack Bowes will only improve. Jai Clark, I've already mentioned. You then throw into the mix Toby Conway. Our fans got a little look at him at the end of the season against
cult favourite.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the fans could sort of start to see why we went after him and backed him in the way that we have. So we're excited about that. Mitch Nevitt, Ollie Dempsey, Tyson Stengel, Brad Place, they're all like that nucleus of a younger team is there, and it's coming through, and that's all been done on the run.
On the run.
Right, and it's quite deliberate what we're doing. So we'll be busy like we always are this time of year. Andrew Mackey and Stephen Wells do an amazing job. We're in great hands there. I want to let the members know that we're just we're so fortunate to have Stephen's experience and Andrew's capability. The two mixed together just work really, really well. Andrew's just been upgraded to GM of footy. We're excited about that, supported by Brett Johnson, who's built our AFLW program. So great opportunities for them. We're in the market for a couple of assistant coaches, which we're super excited about because, with that change will come some, fresh knowledge and innovation.
Of course.
And that would be great for our program as well. So, no, very, very excited about where we can get to in 2024. And also, what we'll uncover over the next couple of months as well.
I mean, as Cats fans, I think what we've all learned over the years, there's always irons in the fire these days. So
Yes.
we'll wait to see what surprises are in store going forward. But obviously, as you touched on yourself, that nucleus of what is to come in the future is looking really, really bright. We've seen patches of it already. We've seen some of the players getting plenty of exposure at this point, and we can expect more of that in the future. So I personally really looking forward to seeing, as you touched on, I've shouted out on a lot of Hoop Show content over the last couple of years. That Mitch Nevitt, for example, in particular for myself, I've got a bit of a soft spot for Mitch. Love what he's doing, and several others as well that you've also touched on. The future is looking very, very bright. We're almost out of time, so some light ones just to wrap things up now. Totally fun stuff. You've had the opportunity to play alongside senior, watch junior closely. Schoolyard pick, if you had to build a team and you've got first selection, those two are standing in front of you. Which way are you going to go?
I'll go select both of them. I know it's been greedy. Look, they're just so hard to compare. They're completely different players. One's an on-baller. The other one's, one of the best forwards we've ever had. One was a magician and just could do things that I've not seen other players. I can remember standing in the back pocket on a player by the name of Fidge for Melbourne. He's forward and was quite a talented forward, and we were actually clapping.
Some of the stuff.
And I'm sort of looking at him, he's looking at me, and we go like, what the hell are we doing here? But we were seeing once in generational player. Geelong has been so fortunate, Paul, to have so many of those players. We've like Selwood, like just a generational leader.
Amazing.
Like, Tom Hawkins, the list goes on. We've got so many of those players we've had over such a long period of time. And Junior, like just what a consistent player Junior was. Like, every single week he was so consistent. I think that's probably the difference between him and his father. But what his father was able to do was just so dynamic. And so, as I say, different parts of the ground. I'm doing a disservice selecting one over the other.
Then I'm possibly putting you in the same sort of compromised position with the next question as well. We touched on several different names from that kind of next generation that's coming through. Is there someone that just speaks to you with their on-field prowess? So I don't want to get into personalities and those sorts of things. That's not the point here. But anyone that you've got a particularly close eye on that's just, I don't know, for you, you've just got a good feeling about whoever that player is and can't wait to see them continue to develop over the coming years.
Yeah, look, I think Max Holmes is one of those, but the one that I would call out is Toby Conway.
Yep.
Yeah, I just think he's got a presence and a way about him that is just going to anchor that entire young group that are part of what are coming through. Like he's an enjoyable person. He's a redhead, so he's got a bit of fire about him. We love that. We've had some amazing redheads down here over time. And, I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do and where he can take us in the future.
Fingers crossed, because he's showing a lot of promise at this point. Well, Steve, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. To learn some little, I guess, exclusive insights into the career that was on field, but also to discuss some of the amazing things you've been doing off field with the AFL and the Cats as well. It's been an absolute pleasure to get to chat to you. Thank you so much for coming aboard.
No, thank you, Paul. I appreciate the opportunity to have a chat.
And Cats fans, I know you're watching. Please, if you haven't already done so, subscribe to the Hoop Show on YouTube. Follow Behind the Play on podcast feeds as well to get the audio version there. And otherwise, remain Geelong strong. As we touched on, I'm sure there's lots of irons in the fire, so there's lots to look forward to. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.